Well, Gary, This Is Us has proved to be a really popular show amongst audiences and critics, and really quickly too. Why do you think the show had such an instant success with viewers?
I have no idea. When I got on, this was before it even got broadcast. There was quite a huge following to the Facebook page that NBC had set up. So it was already germinating at that point. And that's the best I could tell you. I don't think there was any beforehand publicity. I mean, they did the pilot. I didn't do the pilot. Another art team did the pilot. And the art was really minimal because of the change in periods. They stayed away from any kind of background. So if you noticed, it's shot pretty tight and environments aren't distinct. And that was done for a reason, to try to keep the secret of the ending. So I don't know what was done beforehand to promote the show, but it seemed to have a built-in buzz from the get-go.
Well, there is this great emotion to the show, I think, that really compels people to keep watching it. I mean, it's a great domestic drama. To that end, your work in it creates a sense of reality, a sense of grittiness to a lot of it. Kind of blue-collar settings in Pittsburgh, people with money troubles. Can you talk a little bit about creating these sets that would portray the lives of the characters?
Well, from the get-go, Dan Fogelman wanted a blue-collar look to the Pittsburgh family and the Pittsburgh house throughout. There's somewhat of a struggle for Jack, and, all the characters are born with some kind of pretty big struggle going on. And when we first open up the story, it's Jack trying to provide for an incoming family of triplets. So there's a grittiness and an earthiness that's actually pretty challenging to portray on screen, because it's very easy to go out and get a couch that's very high-end and fancy looking, but if you look for a couch from the late 60s or the 70s, we wanted to give the house some depth too, so they wouldn't have brand new furniture. It's hard to get those kind of furnishings these days, whether you go to a prop house. We're always scouring Craigslist, wherever we can find anything. But, people throw their stuff out and they don't have anything to do with it. And then it's juxtaposed against the other standing set that we have all the time is Randall's house, which was based on a house up in Pasadena. That exterior-wise and interior-wise, we could play as New Jersey. And that was definitely a conscious effort to elevate, Randall's making a good amount of money. They both are people of taste. He and Beth are very good people of taste. So we tried to make it tasty and high-endish.
Mm-hmm. And as you mentioned before, finding a couch from the 1960s, you guys also have to recreate not just a period, but sometimes several periods in each episode. Can you talk a little bit about how you go about recreating the period? What kind of research goes into that?
The internet is a blessing. We basically go to Google images and we start searching, and that leads to other links that we find, and it's what we can get. But we that gives us a template to work off of. Sometimes it's just one photograph that nails it, that we all kind of respond to, and that's the directors and Dan and everybody. I'll do quite a bit of research, and say we've been in both basements, Randall's basement and the Pittsburgh basement, and the attic also. But I'll go and I'll do a lot of research, and I'll probably pull about 10 or 12 images that I think, and I'll start showing them around, and we get it down to 3. Sometimes Dan goes, no, that's the one. Sometimes Dan's not around, he's too busy, so we'll go to Ken Olin, and Steve Beers, our producer, also has a great deal of feeling for the show. So those parties will all get together and we'll start shuffling around these images, and then sometimes it gets into specifics where a photo that we've discarded, there'll be a couch or a chair that just rings true. And it's mostly, from what I found, it's stuff that we all respond to as we're growing up. Things from our childhood homes that ring true. And I think that's what helps lay a foundation for a period that is acceptable for the audience.
And can you talk a little bit about the challenges of doing that on a TV schedule? I mean, you guys, sometimes you're like jumping back and forth in time and several decades.
It's really hard because, unbeknownst to the audience, when you film, it was originally supposed to be 4 days on stage and 4 days off a stage at locations. And that's changed, and every episode is different. But in those 3 or 4 days that we're on stage, they don't want to go away and then come back again. So we have to turn over these sets overnight, which is quite a bit of challenge because you don't want to bring more crew in. You want to use the crew that you have to keep down the expense. So sometimes it's getting in there at 2 or 3 in the morning to start the work. We started out pretty ambitious sometimes in our turnover. When we go back to 79, I had a different palette for the house, and we just couldn't do it. I couldn't overnight paint the house and redecorate it. So once we're getting it down, I think the second season will be easier because we have all these photographs of what the set looked like. And when we're doing it, the script says 1979 specifically, but it's never relayed to people that the episode is happening in 79. So it gives us a little leeway that we can play with. But from the get-go, we're always trying to get that 1979 look. But it's mostly done, our turnovers are done overnight, or early in the morning, late at night, whenever we can shuffle the crew and reschedule the crew so we can keep the producers happy because we're not bringing in new people, and we don't want to bring in new people because everybody's kind of familiar with the set and what has to be done.
Right. What are some of the little details that you use in order to, number one, convey a period, but also to create sets that are appropriate to characters?
Well, there's 2 divisions of the art department. One is props and one is set deck, and they interplay a lot. The difference is if an actor handles anything, it's a prop. Like if they have a coffee mug or they have a brochure, that's a prop. And that goes to the prop department, which is headed by Andy Grant of our props. Our set deck team takes care of furnishings and dishes on the table and things like that. But when there's food being served, the props and the set deck have to integrate. So those are when we get into the details. But sometimes, just the games are big things. What the toys that the kids play with, that really helps us nail it down. And I know Andy's always scouring the internet, Craigslist for a game, and it's got to be in pretty good shape. So that's a big one. The games and the toys are really good at helping us identify what era we are. And we try to keep them strewn. Kids don't clean up after themselves, so we try to keep it on coffee tables or wherever we do it. Then there's the little details of shades and stuff. We find a lampshade that, tickles us all, or a chair, or an ashtray, or whatever. Like ashtrays really are a thing of the past now, but they'd be around the house just for decor, especially on period.
Yeah. I'm old enough to remember when ashtrays were in houses. So. I'm of the generation.
If we go into the kitchen, it's the toothbrushes and stuff, the toothpaste. And there's a lot of period work that we have to generate. Like you can't go out and get Colgate or Crest toothpaste tubes. You have to look on the internet, or we have to have them manufactured. There's a lot of fabrication within our department to get specific details, sometimes mentioned in the script and sometimes not, sometimes suggested by the writers or the director.
Right. It's a little thing. You also shoot this out on the West Coast. and it takes place on the East Coast. As somebody from the East Coast, you do a very good job of creating a East Coast feel out on the West Coast. Can you talk a little bit about what the challenges of that are?
Well, you know, the West Coast is pretty much the last, I mean, it's just developed, what, in the last 50 years, as opposed to the East Coast, which has gone on for hundreds of years or so, you know? So architecture is one element, and that's helped by our location department. Duffy Taylor's our location manager, and he goes out and scours us locations. The biggest challenge is if we're outside and we have to deal with grass and trees, and it just never goes brown here, you know. And back east, you know, we had the Thanksgiving, and we're marching through Griffith Park for this hike, and the grass is all green and it's long. And I've painted grass in the past. I've painted grass green. I've painted grass brown. I've never painted it purple or anything, but I've made it look old and new, and that really helps. But we just don't have the digital budget to go in and turn grass green or mow it down, you know, take all the leaves and change them. You know, we just have to kind of live with it and do the best we can and shoot it as tight as we can. Sometimes we'll go to the writer, we'll all go to the writer and see if we can't move a location to a better place that we can accommodate this, you know. But the floor is definitely palm trees, and you know, we'll look at the exterior of a house, and if it's got too many West Coast looking plants, we just have to ignore it. I mean, some people will let us dig their lawn up and replace it, and they're okay with that. So in some cases we've been lucky, but in most cases that's too much work to do on a TV schedule. You know, we're shooting every episode in 8 days. So every episode we've got a new, and we're prepping. So I'm always working on 2 or 3 episodes at a time. And we just don't have the time to change out somebody's, you know, flower bed.
Right. I didn't know that you guys shot that hiking scene at Griffith Park. That's really impressive.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's one of the locations that we've shot. We had a couple, and we went out further out towards Woodland Hills and stuff for another hiking venture. But yeah.
Right.
It drives me nuts, you know, because at a certain point you just can't do anything, and I have to go and watch the episode. My thing is just go to a bar and have a couple of drinks, because it just bugs the hell out of me when we can't be as authentic as we'd like to.
Well, I think you're doing a very good job of it. I wanted to ask, in this past season, what were some episodes that really stood out for you in terms of your work on it?
Well, the one that stood out for me visually the most was the Memphis episode, which I think was episode 16, towards the end of the season. John and Glenn, who did the pilot, directed that episode, and they just hit it out of the ballpark. It's a beautiful vision. It's a beautiful visual storytelling device. You can almost turn off the sound and get the whole gist of what's going on just visually. And the environments that we chose, interior and exterior, we shot 2 days with a little bit more, 2.5 days in Memphis. And what we got out of there was just, we didn't have to fight it. You know, it was cold, it was kind of wintry, we got it. And we picked locations that were kind of gritty for the story. You know, a lot of TV shows, they go for the shiny stuff and the glitter and the high-end look, and we're just, our characters come from very middle to low class beginnings, and for their growth we want to show that. And some place like Memphis, which has a lot of texture, just is, you're able to tell the story so much more easily. We shot all the interiors in LA. We could find these funky clubs and stuff that were basically, that were closed down, but they really worked. It took a lot of work for dressing, and especially in changing over the time periods. But the shell, the bones of what we found was so good that we could really take advantage. It was so textural, like Memphis, that it worked. So it just clicked. That episode just clicked for me.
And you really feel the history of that city within that episode as well, you know.
Yeah, we tried. I mean, we used a lot of, like the club, Melvin's Club was actually a club. We called it Melvin's in respect to, excuse me, can I get a glass of water? Would you mind if I got
No, go right ahead, yeah.
Be right back. Sorry.
Of course.
Sorry.
Oh, you're fine. Are you? Yeah.
I'm back. We were talking about Memphis and specifically what we were talking. Sorry, we were talking about
the history of the city. You feel that in the episode.
Yeah, the club we ran across was a closed down club called Melvin's, and we decided to use that title and to try to. The son of Melvin still owned the property. He told us a little bit about it, and we got a lot from that, you know. So I think we're always trying to take advantage of. We have our eyes and ears open. Everybody does. The directors, cinematographer Yasu Tanita, myself, the rest of the art department, locations department. Sorry. Everybody's very aware of what we're trying to accomplish. And it's a successful show, but the unique thing, and I think you'll hear this over and over from the cast and everyone, is that we just work so well together. And everybody's trying to promote the story as the best. And they don't care where the idea comes. If it comes from in the corner, some PA has an idea, we'll probably listen to them, you know, if it's not out of bounds or anything. Mm-hmm. So there's a great deal of collaboration involved. And that says a lot for the directors, John and Glenn and Ken Olin and Steve Beers, and the writers. Everybody's very open to ideas, and you don't usually get that. Usually the productions are usually filled with strata, different agendas, objectives, personal or professional or whatever. And it just kind of those lines have dissolved in this process.
Right. Well, it's a great show, and congratulations on a successful first season and on your work. And thank you so much for taking the time to chat. It was a real pleasure.
Bye, Zach.
Bye. Have a good one.
You too.